Hello friends, this is Volen in Pursuit of Art. Thanks very much for watching. I want to talk to you today about perspective. So after the last video, the Art Fundamentals one, a lot of people came and said, alright, all that stuff's great, but we don't know what to do now. So I know what that feels like. I'm going to show you actually some stuff through the years about how I've struggled to learn this stuff. And this video is going to be about how to actually practice perspective. It's not going to be technical. I'm not going to be showing stuff like basic square multiplications or stuff like how ellipses work or 1, 2, or 3 point perspective. All that stuff's fairly easy to find. It's everywhere online. There's plenty of videos. I can give you some links if you can't find any, but if you just type in YouTube how to draw in perspective, you're gonna find plenty. But after you find all those videos and you watch them and you just basically see some information, you don't really know what to do with it. And for me, that was one of my biggest problems. This is my pretty much second or third year now, struggling with perspective, and I think I finally found a way to do it. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to practice being too technical or not being technical enough, which I think are the two sort of pitfalls, and then what to actually do with the stuff you learn. So let's have a look. So this is some of the first stuff I ever did. It was back in about 2011, I think. So it's when I first decided I want to just try out some drawing. I really had no intention of doing anything with it. I was just trying things out because I was so bad at it. I don't know. I think I was just so bad. I decided I want to give this thing a try and see if I can get better. It was pretty horrible. It was the worst thing I've ever done, and I really don't know why I stuck with it. But it's taught me a lot more than just the things, just technical stuff. Anyway, I need to shut up now. So I think this is the approach of being too non-technical. So this is me just never ever having any at all art experience and just trying stuff out. So I was aware of perspective, but I had no idea how it works or anything like that. So this is just me trying to rotate boxes and just do some very basic stuff. So you can see basically what the problem is with all these is that there's no real awareness of perspective, and also my mechanical skill is very low. So I've never done the movements, all the motions you need to do, all the straight lines, all the ellipses, circles, all that thing, all those things that are so useful in the vocabulary of perspective. I've never practiced these. So this is the problem when I first started out, is not enough technical training. So a few years down the line now, I just dug this up. It's from last year, so January of last year. So I started both this year and last year with perspective, trying to improve on that, because this year I still felt that there's stuff I don't understand. And basically you understand perspective when you're able to use it, when you don't have to think about it. So it was so hard for me to think about all the things I wanted to do that I just wasn't able to use them. So that's why I had to start all over. So after my being completely non-technical and non-understanding, I went super technical and trying to understand everything, which this results in a very rigid approach to doing anything. So you can see I'm just trying to draw a room. There's a floor plan. To be honest, I don't even remember how I did these. I know they weren't very hard to do because you just learn anything in, let's say, a few weeks. You can learn to do anything. But this is really not the way. If you want to be a painter, if you want to be an architect, that's great. I guess that's what you want to do. If you want to be a painter or illustrator, concept artist, designer, anything like that, this is way too rigid. For a designer, maybe you still have to do that stuff, but for most people, let me just show you some more. So basically, this is me trying to understand everything, and this is 3 point perspective, but if you just, like, this is completely unusable the way it's been done. There's just no way you can understand how to do how are you going to paint the picture on this? Where are you going to put the picture? It's supposed to be a picture of a cube, but even that's hard to figure out. You really don't need to know all this stuff. You don't need to go so technical. I think I went so technical just because I didn't know what to do with perspective. I thought you need to understand all this stuff to be able to just draw pictures and things. I thought you need to be able to figure out everything. So this is just like a staircase. And you can see how much labor has gone into this thing, which really isn't worth it. Like, a 3D program can just do all this for you in about 5 minutes. Like, it's great if you can understand all this stuff, and to be honest, I can't anymore because I just don't remember how I did this stuff, which is why I'm making this video. It's basically to save you time in doing stuff that's gonna prove to be unfruitful in the end. So yeah, that's being too technical now, too rigid. And now I'm gonna show you this year how I practiced and how I finally managed to push through and get to some actual useful perspective. So by now you're probably thinking, wow, this guy's pretty bad. And I don't mean bad as in like real good, I mean bad as in like terrible. So I thought I'd show you this, which is what I did after about a month of practice. So after a month I was still having some trouble with cars, so I decided I'm gonna build a car. So this started as just like a grid, a simple grid. So this is how it started. Just a simple line drawing on a grid, and then just got some reference together and rendered the whole thing out. It's not great, my lines can still use some work. It's definitely harder when you're doing it on a tablet, but it's all just practice. So let's have a look at how I got to this. So this is what I decided to do this year that's different to everything else I'd done the years before. In the last 3 years I must have gone through at least 10 different perspective books. I'd looked at everything that was in there. I've been through countless courses online and on YouTube. I've seen everything that's out there. And perspective isn't really hard to understand. You don't really need a lot of stuff to watch. It's like one of those things that it takes 5 minutes to understand and a lifetime to master. I just didn't know how to master it, basically. So you don't really need a lot of books. You don't really need a lot of technical skill. What you need most is practice and figuring out how to practice. So what I decided to do this year is I got Scott Robertson's book, How to Draw. And Scott Robertson is pretty much the perspective drawing guru. He has many DVDs on the subject, and now the book's out. I recommend it to everyone. There's still other stuff that you might be curious about how they work, but really the essentials of perspective, they're all in there. So what I decided to do is I was going to copy every single thing, and I'm going to go through every single exercise and just do everything that Scott says and see what happens. And along the way I pretty much discovered use perspective basically for what it's meant for. It's meant for constructing things and basically how geometry looks in space. So just try and figure out how to construct stuff. So I started with the most basic stuff. Like every day I will do straight lines, and then I will also do ellipses and doing all that stuff. And it's not that I didn't understand how to do this. I'd known this years before. Alright, you have the minor axis, major axis, blah blah blah, symmetrical through the minor axis. I knew all that, but you can see my ellipses are pretty terrible because I'd never practiced them before. And I didn't practice them because I knew they were pretty terrible and I just didn't want to have to do them. I knew Photoshop can pretty much generate ellipses for me, or I could just do it all in Maya or something else, so there's really no point in doing it freehand. But the thing is, once you start doing it freehand and once you get good, you save so much time having to rely on software. Like, are you in the right program? Are you doing the right, do you need to go to another one to just get an ellipse? Like, it's 1,000 times faster to just be able to do it by yourself. Because then once you master perspective, you're freed to go and chase design after. So anyway, I'm just quickly gonna scroll through some of these. I've done hundreds of drawings and pretty much thrown away 90 of them most likely, and just saved some. But this is how I practiced. So I just picked up the book, and everything that was in there I tried to reconstruct it. So I wouldn't just try to copy the sides that I see. I would try to understand the structure of buildings, and I would try to remake them, and they're still terrible. So this is beginning of the month, and then basically working from very simple stuff, like working from the single lines and then going to like cuboid forms and just slanted lines, like angular lines, then going into some architecture, and this got me started on finding out more about architecture, some Greek style stuff, and then some other things. Mostly, again, just cubes, and then some cylinders, which are looking pretty weird. Beginning of the month again, not really being it. This is the mechanical component, basically, of practice. So you can understand perspective in about a day, but the mechanical part of it, and mentally just being able to draw on shapes that you have memorized, which at the beginning of the month you can see my stuff is pretty childish. Not a lot of stuff in my visual library. This is from a weird Feng Zhu thing that I turned into a vacuum cleaner sort of thing. So, and then I picked up a catalog. It was a product design catalog, and I just decided I'm gonna recreate every single shape I see there, and it turned out that the first 100 pages are just chairs and stuff, so I ended up drawing chairs for a few days. Then getting a bit better, lines are a bit better, definitely straighter. I can now draw curves a bit better, so then I started trying to draw cars, because cars are pretty curvy. I don't know why I didn't pick women. Anyway, so I started doing cars. I'm still struggling with the construction of the glass on top of the base, but getting better every day. Like, this is stuff that I could never do before. And then getting into some more complex cars and shapes. And this all, again, came just from just practicing over and over, getting your straight lines better, getting your ellipses better, spending the time to basically do well on the basic stuff. So then when you do the basics over and over and over, you can start building more complex stuff. And this is how I sort of practice now. I do a lot of thumbnails. So I'll get about 1,000 pictures and I'll just line them all up in thumbnails. I'll draw myself some little squares on a piece of paper and I'll just start drawing thumbnails. So I'll just try to deconstruct the scene. Alright, where's the horizon line? Where is everything converging to? How big is everything in the scene? Just things like that, which again, it's not difficult at all to understand and do, but it's the actual doing that gives you the power to then draw upon this from your head, so you don't have to rely or even just think a lot about what you're going to do. It just comes easier to you afterwards. So a lot of practice translates into better drawings. And this whole thing pretty much culminated in the end in my just trying to construct the car. I had a few reference photos, just front view, side view, and then a 3/4, and then I tried to construct it using sections and everything else that I'd learned from the book. And I should really link a video so you can just see how Scott uses sections. I'll show this later on in the video about just how to deconstruct objects. And this is basically what I used as a base. So I just had a grid, so I don't have to just multiply 7 squares and then 3 across, and then had my wheels set and everything else, and then I just drew the car on top of that. So it just started as a sort of attempt to deconstruct the form, looking at the front view, looking at the side view, seeing where things begin and end, where the glass begins, where the wheels end, just things like that. And then a tighter line drawing, and then pretty much a path fill. So I just turned everything into paths in Photoshop and then filled it up with some color, and then finally just rendered the whole thing. So after showing you what I've been doing this year, let's have a quick look at the different ways that you can use perspective, and then I'm going to do a quick demo of how I practice now. As with drawing in general, there's 2 ways that you can use perspective. One is 2D and the other one is 3D. 2D drawing is basically if you're just somewhere looking at a scene or just copying a photo, or basically you're using reference. You're not drawing from your head, you're doing observational drawing. I see this as useful for hobbyists, people that just like to draw stuff, whatever that might be, painters, artists, just whatever really. Anyone that likes to draw things that they can see, this is for you. Good news for you is that this is easier. It doesn't take a lot to understand. All you need to know really is just how perspective sort of works, which is everything, all perspective lines, all parallel lines go to the vanishing point, and you just try to figure out where the vanishing points are, and you just draw your scene away. That's all you need to do really. Quick example, here's just a 1-point perspective over here. Find your horizon line over there. That's all you need to know, and these are just guidelines for you so that you can put things in the right place on the canvas. This is 1-point perspective. There's a 2-point over here, which find your horizon again, somewhere over here. Find your vanishing point somewhere over the page for this one, and this is again just so you're able to keep all the lines going to the right place. You can still even do this with just like a pencil and trying to, it's not a pencil, just holding a pencil and just trying to figure out the line, the angle of the line, so you can just try to measure. But again, just to keep it more precise, it's better to just figure out where your vanishing point is. But this is all you need to do really as an observational artist. Then here's 3-point, same thing again. It's just 2-point with an extra bonus of everything converging to the top as well. No big deal to understand. The actual understanding comes not from the intellectual understanding, but from the practice. So this is 2D. 3D drawing is now concerned with constructing form. So this is for professionals, for illustrators, concept artists, designers, and pretty much 2D masochist people like me that just want to find everything out and see how it works. The example of this would be the card that I've been showing you. So this is now constructing something. This isn't just copying something. The car as I drew it didn't exist. I didn't have a photo of the car in this position. So I had to construct everything. I know where everything goes. I'm concerned with all dimensions. The sides you don't see, they're still drawn, they're there. If you need to put something in, like if you need to put the seats in, you know where the door ends. You can easily transfer that over to the other side of the car. You can find where that ends. You can put people in. Basically you're working almost as in like real space. So you're manipulating space using 3D drawing. It's harder to master, but it unlocks a lot of other things that you can do. So this is pretty much the key. 3D constructing form drawing is the key to being able to construct things out of your head. So if you're interested in being a professional, or if you just want to draw stuff from your head, you need to spend some more time and develop this skill. So let's have a quick look at how to practice these. So for 2D people, your practice will look something like this. Since you're pretty much concerned only with what you can see, you don't really need to think about the construction of forms, how things are made, section drawings and things like that. All you really need to figure out is where your horizon line is. Come on, horizon. Where your horizon is. And then just duplicating the shapes, following the guidelines and duplicating the shapes. So we can see here our vanishing point will be somewhere in the center, pretty clear. And then we're going to have these shapes that pretty much go to the edge of the page. So we can just duplicate these. If this is our vanishing point over here, we'll just duplicate the convergence. Or we can just set up a grid. So another thing we can do is there's plenty of different perspective brushes, and it just sort of gives you radiating light lines. We're not really going to use this for this one. It's not very complicated. So we can just go ahead and just do this freehand. But there's plenty of different tricks pretty much that you can use to ease your life a little bit. So we're just duplicating shapes. This one a bit lower than horizon over here. The other one pretty much just transport it over to the other side, and then just another line. And then this is pretty much the construction of your scene. All you have to be concerned now with is, let's just say we give some border over here, and then this goes down as well, and just give it a bit of an edge. And let's say if we want to add some more stuff and just put some trees in, just an indication. We're not actually drawing the trees, we're just sort of outlining where the shapes go, and that's about it. And then just some weird clouds. So for people just looking for representational drawing, observational drawing, this is really all you need to know. It's just where's your vanishing point, where's your horizon, that should really come first, and then just duplicating the shapes that you see. This is all you need. You don't need to worry about how this looks off the scene, so off the page. Or if you're a concept designer, or if you're just doing 3D drawing and you understand, you know basically that this plane extends over here and then there's people over here. Things just continue. For you, the world pretty much ends over here, and it makes life very much easier. So for 2D artists, I would just recommend, if you're doing landscape, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're doing landscapes particularly, or architecture, because they're just more angular sort of as subject matter, it's easier to use perspective on them. Everything really has perspective. Anything you see has perspective applied to it. These are just things that are easier to practice on. So I would just advise you, just get used to finding your horizon line quickly, thinking about vanishing points being off the page. For me, that was a bit weird to just think that more things just happen off your page. And it does, because if you just think that you are there, if you're actually there on the scene, then you have to think about that if you just turn your head slightly, you're gonna view a completely different scene right next to you. So after a while, you can even start doing this without vanishing points. Just be aware that they're there, and you're just trying your best to aim for them. And you can even sketch. And by the way, this is a big tip, because I always started things very rigidly. I would start with a perfect grid and a perfect cube and everything else, but then I wouldn't know what to do with those, and I wouldn't want to spoil them. So I wouldn't want to have my perfect cube that I spend half an hour trying to position, and then all of a sudden go and not have something technically perfect, but then I would get so rigid I wouldn't know what to do. So start off loose, start off with a sketch. Even if you're doing imagination drawing, even if you don't understand everything about the parts that you don't see of objects, Still, just start off easy and loose and don't worry about the technical stuff so much, and then go back in with awareness of where the vanishing points are supposed to go and what else is supposed to happen. Okay, let's have a quick look at 3D people now before this video turns into another 50-minute video marathon. So for the 3D people now, like we said, you're gonna be mostly concerned with constructing stuff. So this could be things that you imagine, or it could be just taking existing things and just turning them around, let's say, giving them a new viewpoint. So you could just, let's say you can walk up real close to that building, you can just walk up right there and you're right next to that wall now, and it looks huge to you. So you're looking up at the whole thing, and then there's this other stone going up there. Or let's say maybe you want to fly in a helicopter, let's say. So you're in a helicopter now. I'm just going to make it smaller, and you're going to view it from the top now. I hope it doesn't take too long. So, say we're at the top. And this is going to be pretty rough. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But let's say you're now at the top. And this isn't the same exact proportion, but it's still a sort of pyramid structure. So let's say you're at the top and you're flying over it now. Or let's say you're trying to create something, in which case we take a different approach. So whatever it is that you're trying to do, there's many different ways that you can approach it. And 3D drawing in this sense gives you great freedom to explore form. It allows you to explore existing design. It allows you to begin with your own designs. I have no idea what this is. It's a fish submarine. So this way of working is more difficult in terms that it just takes a bit longer to learn. You have to practice more things, definitely. You have to make sure that your technical skills are better. You have to understand more. You have to be able to keep track of more things, like where's every. But it's not difficult. I don't want you to get the impression that this is in any way anything that you can't master at all. That's not true. It's just a skill. If you know how to read, or if you understand what I'm saying, especially if your native language is in English, you can learn to do this. I guarantee you. It won't take you very long. It's a slipper now. I decided it's a big slipper. Nice. So yeah, you can practice for years to get good at perspective and then make a slipper. So for 3D people, what I recommend you do is one thing, and the first thing I guess, is if you don't know where to start with technical information, start with Scott Robertson. He's got plenty of DVDs on perspective. This is basically where I picked up this method for section drawing, just thinking about the sections of an object and deconstructing it or constructing it that way. So for people learning to draw in 3D, check out Scott Robertson, his book How to Draw. It just came out. He's gonna have a series of books. Really great guy. Give me a shout if you want me to maybe try and make a video for the basics of perspective. But for 3D people, again, what I recommend you start doing, and this is how I practice drawing, is just find what you're interested in. After you master the technical stuff, after you sort of understand the sections, you understand how that stuff works, after you get some good practice at straight lines, which I'm great at now because my drivers just went all weird. So after you get some practice drawing straight lines, after you start with your ellipses and you master those, after you build a few basic shapes, a few basic forms, something like the slipper, maybe try your hand at a car, find what you like, find what you're interested in, find what designs appeal to you, and then look them up. For me, I've for some reason started looking at military stuff. So what I'll do is I'll just basically watch it. I'll find a documentary on what's interesting to me, and I'll pause it pretty much every 3 seconds, which means you should never watch anything with me, and I'll just draw. If I find something I like, I'm just gonna try and I'm gonna draw that. So for 3D people, find what you're interested in after you master the basics, and then try and just deconstruct the things that you find. Try to deconstruct them. So look at the shapes, see how they relate to each other, find where your vanishing point is, all that stuff, or even try to rotate an object. For beginners though, people just starting out, just try and figure out how the objects put together. what shapes is it made of, what are the sections. You don't need to worry about making it exactly the same, but just try and figure out, here's the side view of it, sort of, and then we're going to do the front view of it, sort of. I'm going to do this quick, guys, because I think it's another mammoth video. So just find what you're interested in, find what you like, study those things, and this way, for me at least, you're sort of getting two birds with one stone. So you're building your visual library, and you're also practicing your perspective. So this stuff will serve you, let's do a different section. This stuff will serve you a lot in the future. One thing, again, your hand accuracy, your mental calculations are getting better. So you're looking at things, you're deconstructing, you're figuring stuff out. And the more you do this, the quicker you get. The quicker you get, the less you have to think about the tedious stuff, like the sections, like the different, like the constructions. Because let's say I can do this now, sort of, but I didn't start this way. How I started was constructing everything. So I would make the center line, I would make myself the grid, I would have my vanishing points somewhere far off here. So I would do everything. Then I would plot, let me just get rid of everything. So even for a simple cube, let's say, still just follow everything that you need to do, construct it over and over and over. So just basically get it in your head. The key ingredient to any type of learning is repetition. And I've written about this before in blogs and everything. You need to know your brain. Every time you do something, your brain forms new connections. So let's say that you've never done perspective before. Let's say you've never done it. So you just start doing some lines. So your brain is now growing connections for how to make a straight line. After you're done doing a lot of straight lines, you start with ellipses. This is going to be terrible. You start with circles. You start with ellipses. You do all the basic stuff. You do all that. You show it to your brain. Your brain grows connections for that stuff. Your brain learns it. Your brain moves on. Your brain is like a computer that's stupid. So you need to show it stuff. Like, it doesn't figure stuff out. You have to show it. So, alright, brain, today we're going to do 1,000 straight lines until you stop doing that slope or whatever it is that you normally do. Next day, alright, brain, today we're going to do 1,000,000 circles, and I'm going to show you exactly, even though you know what a circle looks like, we're going to do 1,000,000 circles today, and you're going to get better by the end of the day. Next day you move on. Alright, brain, we're going to do something like something combining both straight lines, and we're going to have an ellipse over there, or maybe we're going to have an arch, something like that. We're going to have round and curvy forms. So you practice the construction now, and this is going to be hard the first times you do it. It can't not be hard. It just, your level of frustration goes up and down, and the moment your level of frustration goes down, then you have to find new challenges. But you just practice over and over and over and do it again and again and again. And this whole thing, this drawing, painting, all that stuff, the fun about it is not that you get the best. It's not that you can do anything. Is that you're just now freer to find new stuff. Whether it be the slipper or something else, you can now originate your own stuff. You can try and make your own things. Whether it's drawing, whether it's painting, whatever it is, just keep doing it. That's all. Just keep doing it. Feed your brain one thing at a time. Show your brain stuff. Feed it. Treat it like a stupid child. Whenever you don't get something, it's not you, it's your brain. Teach your brain to do what you need it to do. It will then start repeating it for you automatically. And once it starts repeating, you are then free to move on to the next thing. So once you know about sections, once you know about how to draw in perspective, then you can chase design. Once you can chase design, then maybe you learn about lighting. And then once you learn that, when you can combine the two, then you can really do whatever you might want to do, anything. And just don't forget, it's a process. You're going to be learning forever. And that's not a bad thing. It makes it fun. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you got something out of this. I hope now when I process the video, it's not going to turn into a 6-hour thing. If it does, I hope you like it. Take care. Thanks a lot.